Hi everyone, this is Stephanie with Hightower Stitching with today's video, and this one is really neat. It's a 20 by 20 inch block, and the highlights are that it's a large block, 2, it's a quilt as you go, 3, it's a log cabin block, and 4, it's got the pineapple accents. And today what I want to do is show you the 2 samples that I've gotten done, show you the material I've chosen for today's demonstration, and then 3, go to the sewing machine and go through the steps for the block. So hang tight. As we look at the sample blocks, it would help you to know that you're going to need a big piece of 24 by 24 for the backing. You're going to need a piece of 24 by 24 batting. You're going to need a center block. You're going to need 4 log cabin rounds, 6 pineapple squares, and then binding. And all of the dimensions will be put in the description where it'll be easy for you to find them. Here's sample 1, and I took some jelly roll strips to do the first one because these are going to be 2.5 inches wide, and it was already, the colors were put together, I could choose from different colors, and it went together. And so those would be your log cabin rounds. You've got your center, you've got a round, a round, a round, and then another round where you go all the way around, and the rounds are all the same, always the same color. Then you've got 16 pineapple squares, and the pineapple comes from these triangles that come out that are made from a box, and we'll look at those. And then the backing on this particular one, I had some green, and I put green on there because this is a holiday one. That's sample 1. And this is sample 2. In another month, it's my daughter's birthday, and the other day she impressed me again with the fact that she loved blues and creams. So I said I was going to do a little surprise for her. And so there again, you see your center block, you see your first lap around, you see the pineapple triangles, and then the next rounds and the next rounds. Now if you look at this one, I chose to go with a light in the middle so that it would show up. That turned out good. And a medium shade, then back to a light, and then into a dark for that part. And then the back was a piece of flowered, which I had used in the front, so I carried it to the back. And the funny thing was the only color that I had left from these, and these were parts of a fat quarters, was a plaid that I really liked, and it turned out really nice around the back. So that's sample 2. And this is one project where it helps to figure out the colors that you want to use. Sometimes you can just start going and it'll fall into place, but this one you really need to put some thought to. So, and both times I like to put something pretty in the middle, and I did a fussy cut. So I went ahead and made a 4.5 inch square template so that I could lay it on the material and cut. So my center block for the one we're going to look at today is this flowered material right here. And then my first round, my second round, my third round, my fourth round, which is actually the same as the first round. Does not have to be, but I just like the way it looks. And that's what I had done on the blue one also. Okay, and you say, well, there's something missing. Yes, there is. The pineapple triangles. And so in this set of fabrics, which were fat quarters, I liked that. That was one of the pieces I hadn't used and had all the colors in it that goes. And so you'll see that becoming my pineapple triangles. There are a couple things that you need to do before we get ready to start to sew. And the first one is to pick what you're going to put as the center block, which we did. Get your batting. It's going to be a 24 by 24. That's going to give you plenty of room for imperfections when you're sewing. And fold it in half and fold it in half again so you know where the center is. And the center would be right here on this one. And I've already laid my square on and I pinned it down. And then you need to have your backing. And for this particular one, because it's such a dark, old looking vintage kind of look, I went ahead and put black on the back And then you're almost ready to start. And here's one of the things that I learned that made this easier. These were the arrangement of my colors from the center to the outside. And I went ahead and I cut everything that went on round one. There's 2 shorts and 2 longs. The one that was going to go on there, and one on there, and one on there. That helps you also to look at it and see if you like the progression of colors as you're going. But this case I did the light to dark to medium to a dark again, back to the center. Okay, I think I've got you ready to go. And I did not tell you that the source of this was the Quiltmaker magazine, September to October of 2021, page 11. And this is a table topper. All right, got everything set up. Nice thing about this, there's not going to be opening seams. We're just going to fold it over. So I'm going to start with round 1, which was my light one. And you probably won't have to watch the whole thing, but once you watch 1 or 2, you'll have it. So, and it doesn't matter since it's a square. You just pick one side of your square to put your small one down. The shorter one of those 2. That's one. And I'm going to push it back. I'll just finger press it. And depending on how your material is, finger pressing works very well. You see, these we're going to start out with really short, and we're going to get longer. And I ended up shortening my stitch just a little bit. Got this one laid down, and it's so short I don't have to pin it. Later you might get where you want to pin it. Make a 1/4 of an inch seam. And the closer you come to that, which that one's a little short, it's gonna make your square change. But you've got 24 inches, so if it gets off a little bit, you're going to trim it down to 20 by 20. So now I'm just going to tip it. And this is so much fun because I loved picking out the colors. And what I found is sometimes I was a little short on this end. Well, if you go ahead and start your needle in to catch your material, and then you gently pull on that, gently, some of your material will be cut just right, and it'll give you that little piece that you want. And the funny thing is, I can already tell I like this. And this piece that I just added had to come from somewhere else. It was not in that set. And so that made it fun. It made it more mine because I had to go and hunt for something. This one looks like it fits pretty good. But I'm going to give it a little tug. And we finish the first round of quilt as you go because you have your backing, your batting, and the top. I'm going to lay it back down, all right? Here's the next part. We're going to add our pineapple triangles. And what you do, this is one thing I needed to tell you to do, was to go ahead and draw one diagonal. And mine's black just because I would have used a mechanical pencil. But because I was doing this, I used a permanent marker. And I'm going to come over to a corner. And you can tell how you're doing by how your corners are laying. And the first round's not distorted. Now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to line it up with the corner, and the diagonal's going to be up here. Now what I did do is I started putting my fingernail right in the center and tipping this part back. And my gosh, this one's going to be perfect. Now I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. So now we're going to take And we're going to stitch down that line. Once you get everything together, it works neat. And I'll show you the next part then. This is the piece that's going to come back. And look, right there, it's right in the corner. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to tip this up. This piece is bulk. We're going to take and cut that out. But I will tell you one thing. I'm just doing it this first time so that you can see it. But if it was me, I would take all of these and sew them down first and then start doing this. Because you know, I always talk about getting distracted or distracting your own self. And of course I did that. And I cut the top off instead. But guess what? I went ahead and took it out with my seam ripper and then turned it around. And of course, because it was part of it and it still had this seam allowance on there, it was perfect, and it went right down. Then the other piece, don't like to waste those, and I found out later if I stacked these together, I could get a 2-inch square. And 2-inch, 2.5, 3-inch squares are great to have. So now I'm just going to flip this back. I'm going to finger press it. When you get to longer ones, you are probably going to want to go to the iron and press carefully. I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. I wanted to show you something that I did. These, remember I said these came from a fat quarter? Well, it just happened that I could make 12 squares. When I started, I thought I could get 16 out of it, and I guess I miscalculated. But I found out that if I took the little end piece that I had and sewed it on, and then turn this, and cut my square, it made. And I thought, okay, now how's this not going to look goofy on the front or whatever? So, this works really well. If you take your corner and the big piece of seam that you added, have it the closest one to the corner. So, if you can see that, okay, it's sitting right there. And now again, I'm just going to do a check on my corner. There's my line, and that's going to be just perfect, almost perfect. Okay. And you can probably imagine, I already know which part I'm going to cut off. And turn it. Right, we want to keep this piece because it's going to flap down. And this is what you do when you're making a pineapple block, which is really pretty. And so many times it's blue with the yellow for the corners. And I'm going to push this down. And this is popping up because of that little piece, but you can't even see it. It has disappeared. It's just that little piece right there. So if you're using a fast quarter for making your pineapple part, it can be done, especially if it's the color you really want. And that was my issue because I'd found all my colors. And the first row will overlap, and that's okay. That's what it needs to do to make the seam. All right. And that one's off a little bit, so I can just move it up a little bit. You're not going to be moving anything very much. Because you don't, but it doesn't matter because you're going to be taking that piece off, so you can have some room for this one. And I'm just cutting them off now because that's where we are. That's nice. Another nice one. And by the time you get done, you're going to have so many of those little pineapple pieces on there that, you know, if you're off on one of your corners, isn't that pretty? I like that. This might be the one I keep. Every once in a while I find out there's something I make I keep. And that one's good. And that's going to be fine because that's going to fall with, that's going to be okay because it's going to fall within the next part. So then, now I start the repeat. So you'll know when you're ready to stop, whenever. And I appreciate you watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll try it because it really turns out pretty. And I do have to tell you, it goes a little fast, but you got to be careful, you know, because you make your 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going and I'm starting. And there again, we're square, so it doesn't matter which side you start with. I think that's one of the things that I like, because you used to always have to pick your own colors and put them together, and now I like doing that, and I like making scrappy quilts. But it's nice to pick up a line of fabric or two and mix them together, whether it's jelly rolls or fat quarters or eighths. And I'll put the dimensions for these. And see how that goes together with that corner, with our pineapple piece in there, that square. Now what if the piece you have is too long? Well, I wouldn't worry about that. I just sew it on because they're not usually going to be that much off. And like I said, when you get this done, you can take a square ruler and you can square up with that and cut off for your edge. We're about around. And it's really getting some personality now. This over here. All right, this material's soft, this material's sticking to the other material. There's no need for me to pin. Now, I'm using a walking foot. If you're using the regular sewing machine foot, you probably will want to pin it because that only pulls from the bottom, where the walking foot pulls from the top also. Great for quilting. And now we have finished that second round. All right, and I'm going to start again because I had to make 4 pieced corners. So this is another one. So now I'm going to go to any corner. I'm going to center this just like we did on the first one. And I'm going to do a little spot check. And it stayed pretty good. About the last lap, I think, is where I had to just sort of move it a little bit to get it to cover that fabric right there. And you'll probably see this one time on one of my reveals, because I've got 1 or 2 quilts that we talked about, and I'm working on them. One of them I ran out of the material, and I always try to do something that's got plenty. And this is a little bit black showing right here. This fits perfectly. So I think that's helping me to get the corner line back up, and I'm not going to worry about it because it looks like it would still cover when I bring my next piece of material to start the round. And see, here was one where I had a little bit extra on the bottom, but when I put this on here, that's going to square it back up. And I see I'm going to be right on the corner point. You're going to feel like a master when you get done and you look at all of those corners that look so good. And they're going to say, how did you do that? Let me say, I did a tutorial with someone on the internet. Love the internet. And one of the things I was going to say was about pressing. Like this one, I'm still not ready to press. Everything's small. But when you get ready to press, say it was this long piece right here, you can press this top. Don't iron it. Press it so that the seam's set. All right, then gently turn it back and take your iron and slide it up over that little crease there, right where it is. This is where your distortion comes, because if you start ironing like this and like this, it's going to pull that, and it's going to go up and down, and so you don't want it to do that. And it makes it your job easier when you stitch. Okay, I'll do one more corner. Guess you know what I'm going to do when we get done with this video. I've got this all set up, ready to go. But you could have fun with all the seasons, or Easter and fall, Halloween. This is starting to look like some of my Christmas projects, holiday projects for people that I know. And I do it by their personality, or something that they like the ball team or something like that. And another one turned out nice. And so you sail around, and I've got a little bit more on this one, and then I've got the other 2 rounds to put on. When I get that done, I'm going to square it up to be 20 inches by 20 inches. And then I'm going to come back and put my binding on there. And there are a lot of very good videos on putting binding on it. And for these, I'm sewing the binding to the front, turning it to the back to hand sew, since I'm thinking these are going to be gifts for other people. This has been the highlights of making a 20 by 20 block. It had one large block when we finished. It's a quilt as you go method. It uses a log cabin block, if you've never made that, and then it uses the pineapple accent, which makes it look like the pineapple. And there's 4 on each row as you go around. Thank you for watching, and the dimensions will be in the description.